Hi, my name's Glenn Hasselman. I'm just making this video for the users of free accounting software to show you guys how to set up an allowance of type other in free accounting software. So set up this business and done a few payrolls through it. In fact, I've done a few other videos on how to set up various taxes and accounts for single touch payroll. What I want to do is show you how to set up an allowance of type other. So we've had the cents per kilometer allowance, the other allowance -V1 private car for an example, and now I'm going to set up an other allowance -other. So this allowance we set up previously, just have a quick look at it, is allowance type other. The ATO added some specific allowances. So in the allowance-other taxable category, we've got G1 general, V1 private vehicle, and ND non-deductible. Okay. And so before setting up an allowance of type other, which you would choose this allowance-other or allowance-other taxable, you got to make sure that your allowance doesn't belong in one of these predefined categories. So for example, we've got allowance like overtime meal, travel, tools, tasks. There's a few different things there. And then even in the other category, they've predefined these allowances, and there'll be some information on the ATO website about when you should put your allowance into those categories. Okay, so what I want to cover off in this video is how to use these ones, and I guess that's called the other-other allowance. So let's create a new tax code, and maybe just call it mystery allowance. So I'm not sure what allowance you'd be paying this thing here for, but because most of the allowances are all defined, so this would probably be rarely used. Okay, now I'll just set up the thing. So FAS classification, look, it's probably going to go in salaries and wages as a taxable salaries and wages, but if it's a non-taxable thing, maybe it's not going onto the FAS. But for the purpose of this, I'm putting it into the FAS under salaries and wages. But you'll have to consider whether that's the right thing for your allowance. Income type, I'm going to pick salaries and wages. I think I've talked about this income type in other videos. So that's probably the main one, let's say. Now, on the gross classification, as I said, we've got, several different allowance types to choose from. And you have to make sure it's not more appropriately reported under one of those predefined types. And then if not, well, then you've got these allowance-other and allowance-other taxable. So allowance-other is not going to be taxed, so no tax will be withheld from it. And that's that's going to be probably very rarely used, because we have to withhold tax and check the ATO website to confirm whether you have to withhold tax from what you're paying. But it's normally only allowed to not withhold tax when it's something that's got ATO defined measures, and so you're within these set rates and things from the ATO. And if you are within those set rates, I would think you're kind of probably going to find that your allowance is fitting into one of these other categories. So I'm going to put it into other dash taxable. Tax classification, I'm going to put not applicable. Okay, now at this point, we've basically set it up just like any other allowance, but there is one extra step we need to do for allowance of type other, and that is we need to give it a description and this description will get reported to the ATO. So down in this STP additional information, bracket if applicable, is where we need to give it a description. So I'm going to call it mystery allowance. Now, previously, we had the other allowance description put in here in the description field for the tax code. And if you leave this blank and you put a description in here, the software will still pick that up. So if you've migrated data across from single touch payroll 1, then it's still going to pick up this description. However, if you have migrated data across from single touch payroll 1, you should review that because you might find that, as I said before, there is another allowance category here that's predefined and it's more appropriate to use. Okay. So having set up all these details, we click save. Okay. Now we need to set up an account as well. So when we're entering the payslip, we don't choose the tax code directly. We select the account and let the software pick up the default tax code. So let's go and set up an account. New account. Just call it mystery allowance. The question of apply super comes up, and I'm going to say true. So we're going to add super on top of this. I guess when things are taxable, they earn them in ordinary time. It's tax. It's I guess super on top. If it was overtime related to overtime, it wouldn't, and that'd be how the super works. But you can choose, so you got to consider whether your allowance is going to get super on top or not, and then choose the appropriate thing. And here we go, the default tax code. This is where we put the select this tax code that we've set up. The payment deduction type, I'm just going to put earnings. That sort of controls where it presents on the payslip to be selected. You could probably pick any of these top 4 types, but I'm just going to pick earnings. Some allowances you might find have a certain rate. So you could put a rate in here. For example, let's say our allowance was, $20 per each time it was accrued, or each time the employee became entitled. It'd be $20 per day or $20 per event, like I don't know, overtime or meal allowance and things like that. But $20 per something, some qualification thing happening for it, and then save that. Okay, now let's go to the payslip and see how this looks. So go to, in fact, I'll just shortcut that and go in through here and click new payslip. Select the employee. Now in this account here, we can select mystery allowance, and let's say they got qualified for 3 allowances. Okay, you don't need to use the quantity and rate. You can just delete these two numbers and put in your amount directly. Just sort of offering that here as a bit of an additional bonus bit of information for you. Okay, so let's see how this looks. So under the pay event info, I always say go and check that it is showing the correct information. We scroll down, and this is how a other allowance should look. So we've got the other allowance description of mystery allowance, which is what we typed in, and the other allowance amount of $60. Okay, and so that's how you set up and pay an other allowance in Single Touch Payroll 2 using free accounting software. Hope the video has been useful, and thanks for watching.